How to Turn on Your Woman. I highly recommend Women's Anatomy of Arousal by Sherry Winston. For women to be turned on, it has a lot to do with how we feel about you and the emotional state between us. So if a woman is angry with her husband, if he's depressed, critical, angry, holding a grudge, bad breath, she's not going to want to fuck him. But if you're angry with him, he'll still want to fuck you. A man will go around and most men will smash any attractive woman. And if they're really horny, they won't even care how attractive she is. She just has to be available. Whereas for a woman, the man, it's how she feels about him. He has to be attractive, but that's not enough. His social status, his the way he talks to her, interacts with her, how she feels about him, the way he walks, the way he talks, the social cues, the facial cues, the words, his pheromones, all these factors come in. And when it comes to being touched, men are more like, I'm going to say like dogs. Like dogs are happy to see you. You just come up and just pet the dog. Just grab the penis. The guy's going to be happy. A woman is more like a cat. You want to gently approach, like, you want to be touched, And so, like, don't touch me, like, do you want to be touched? That's just a turn off. But I mean, start from the outside in. Our connection and how affectionate you are with me and how caring you are about me. Kissing me, holding me, touching different body parts. By the time you touch a woman's vulva, she should already be wet. You don't turn on a woman by touching her vulva. Now, if a guy is not hard, I can stroke his penis till he's hard. He's going to love it. But if a woman isn't turned on, I would never go around and rub her pussy till she's wet. It's never going to happen. If a woman wasn't turned on, I would do this. If I were a man and my woman wasn't turned on, I would figure out why she's pissed off at me and why she's feeling neglected. That's what I would figure out first. I would give her some attention and I would listen to her about her day and hear how she's feeling. And then I would caress her hair and kiss her and hold her tight, maybe grab her ass and tell her how sexy she is and how much I want her. And then I would just seduce the fuck out of her and dominate her real good. That's what I would do. And I'm surprised at myself saying this. But if you're a woman, guy, if your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, you can just go up to her and say, Becky, let's say, I really miss the physical intimacy between us and how it used to be. Do you miss it too? Or what do you need from me to want that again? And then really listen. For women to want sex, how we feel about you, how we feel in the relationship is everything. Now, some women don't want sex because they're going through a physical illness. Nobody wants sex when they're sick, not even men, okay? But if there's no physical illness, menopause is not a reason that women don't want sex. I don't buy it. It's how she feels in the relationship and that she doesn't feel cared about by you or loved by you. So now let's go over some biology things. I want to show you this chart in Women's Anatomy of Arousal because we know that a man gets erect in a few seconds or a minute. They get hard and they can just look at you. They can look at a woman and get hard. But for a woman to reach maximum arousal, it depends on how she feels about you, and she needs stimulation for 30 to 45 minutes of stimulation to reach maximum arousal, according to this book. So you want to do a lot. You want to have a long sex session. If you're just giving her a 2-minute quickie, like a lot of you guys are doing, or some of you, probably none of you, but my ex-husband always gave me quickies. 1 stroke or maybe 5 strokes or 2 minutes. I was barely started and he was done, rolled over and went to sleep. That's why I left him, by the way. It's like it was too painful emotionally to be treated that way in bed. Here's a diagram of the clitoris and okay, so here's the vagina, the vaginal opening. It's not really that big, but you see the point. Here's the bladder and the urethra. And the only part you see from a woman, if you see a woman's vulva in a diagram, you might not even see the vaginal opening. You see the outer lips, which are on top of this, and you may see the little button, the glands of the clitoris. The rest of this is all internal, but the clitoris is actually not just a little button. It has this ridge. I want to focus this. There we go. It has the legs, and it has the vestibular bulbs, and these are all erectile tissue. When a woman becomes aroused, there are also ligaments which attach from here to the uterus, and when this gets engorged, it pulls on the ligaments and pulls the uterus up, thus elongating the vagina, according to this book. However, I don't have my uterus and my vagina gets elongated, so there must be other factors. And you know, I'm going to say that it's a very interesting state of our government that is not doing enough research on sexuality, female sexuality, and these topics. It's like off limits in some way. You know, so there's a lot we still don't know. Now, there's another area. They think that the squirting comes from the paraurethral glands, which are around the urethra. There's erectile tissue. There's erectile tissue around the urethra that gets engorged when a woman is turned on, called the urethral sponge, and that the paraurethral glands go out from the urethra into this erectile tissue, and that a woman's squirting comes out of this area. So for those squirters out there, they think this is where it happens. Other people say there is no G-spot. Some people say the G-spot doesn't exist until that tissue becomes engorged, and that engorged area is the G-spot. So that's something else about the G-spot. And I want to show you one more diagram which shows you how a woman gets aroused through all the stages. So initially a woman's clitoris looks like this. A little bit more aroused. I'm sorry. You can see that there's more engorgement, right? This tissue is getting more swollen. This is the clitoris. It goes all the way back to the rectum. All that tissue under your outer lips, ladies, under your vulva, is erectile tissue. And then it continues to get even more engorged to where it's even squeezing on the vagina. So you can see, and this process takes 30 to 45 minutes of stimulation to get to this point. So we women are indeed very mysterious. So here is another diagram of, yeah, I think I showed you everything in this book. Yeah, so now some people call this warm-up period foreplay. However, you know, I think we have to get away from calling everything foreplay except penetration. That comes from the patriarchy. That comes from dick-centered men who think that penetration, the thing they want the most, besides a blowjob, penetration is sex, and everything else is just foreplay or afterplay. Well, that just depends on your definition. A lot of sex therapists define sex as anything erotic that happens between you. So kissing can be sex. Playing with your nipples can be sex. Fingering, rimming, oral, any kind of genital touch or erotic touch is sex. And does that mean that because 95% of women do not orgasm from penetration, and a lot of men don't have the erection capability anymore as they get older to do penetration, but they're still all having sex. So I'm going to call this video How to Warm Up Your Woman. And just remember, if your woman doesn't want sex with you, to have a conversation with her, and you're going to have to get into your feelings, into your heart, and be intimate and be vulnerable. Because if a woman feels like you're cheating on her, she's not going to want to have sex with you. If you're walking around angry or depressed, or you're dysfunctional, like you're not helping with the kids, or you're not working because you're moping and feeling sorry for yourself, or you're feeling entitled, she's not going to want to have sex with you. A woman's desire for sex is contingent upon the nature of the relationship. And the better the relationship, the more safe she feels, hey, she will give you more than you will know. Now, I will say that women who were sexually abused, either by being shamed for their sexuality or actually physically abused and touched in violated, will either be hypersexualized or sexually shut down until they've gone to therapy. So if you're married to a woman who was sexually abused, no matter how much she loves you, any kind of sexual touch will just bring these flashbacks, and her body will just go into this trauma response mode and not want it. So I really recommend that you get these women into therapy, or don't marry them at all, because I've talked to men who had no sex life at all. They were married to one of these women. And just like in any relationship, if you're with someone who came from any kind of a traumatic childhood, where there was alcoholism, a parent with a mental illness, a sick sibling who got all the affection, where your needs were not met, and you may not even know that your needs were not met. You, as a child, you need to have had someone who made sure you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, clothing, schooling, comfort, affection, someone who taught you to read, ride a bike, someone who loved you, tucked you in at night, was happy that you were alive. You had to feel as a child, my parents are happy that I'm alive, giving you attention, teaching you things, but also the emotional part. A lot of kids didn't have the physical part. They raised themselves. Not only that, they had to raise their parents and be the emotional caretaker of their parents. That's all neglect. Shaming you for your sexuality is also like type of sexual neglect. And if you're in a relationship with someone who grew up that way, your relationship is going to suffer, because you're dealing with someone who is traumatized and not healthy. So I just wanted to point that out to you, and that will show up in your sex life too, because, if somebody is walled off emotionally and the only sex they can have is just physical, they're not going to hold you tenderly. They're not going to look in your eyes. They're not going to care about your pleasure. They might even have sex as violent. They might withhold sex from you, use sex as a punishment. But the good news is that people who can go to therapy can have these amazing breakthroughs and learn great relational skills. And a great sex life requires an open heart and great relational skills, and just giving ourselves permission to see ourselves as like animals. Like, we're animals, right? We eat and we poop and we exercise and we laugh and we play and we fuck. And it's all good. We are spiritual beings in physical form. And as much as meditation is wonderful and praying is wonderful, so is fucking the hell out of someone. So I think we need to honor not just our spiritual selves, but also our physical selves. And a healthy relationship requires regular sex. If you have sex less than once a month, you are by definition in a sexless marriage. And sex is the way that couples bond. It nurtures your relationship, it bonds you. And that's what he was teaching us in the course today, the importance of that. Anyway, thank you for watching my video, and contact me for coaching.